So listen, thank you for coming on. I feel weird because obviously you guys are podcast hosts yourself, so this is a bit weird. It's a bit weird for me, but yeah, no, listen, look, I just want you guys to come on. You guys have got an amazing story, and I just think it's good for people to hear about it. So listen, I always kind of start in the same way. I'd say, what are some of your highlights of your journey so far?
I'll let you answer that first.
Okay. I think the kind of exceeding of expectations following our due diligence.
Yes.
The due diligence process is detailed.
Yep.
Can be quite painful sometimes.
Can be.
Many variables to think about.
Yep.
So many hats you have to put on.
You're literally like an investigator, right?
Exactly. It's like exactly that. And so as much as it was painful, now we're on the kind of other end where we're actually exceeding our expectations in terms of the due diligence that we found.
Yeah, because you guys are getting better average nightly rates than you planned for. Right?
Yes. So our kind of general sort of expectations were 85% occupancy and probably about the £300 mark. We're pretty much 100% occupancy, which is crazy, right? But really good. And in terms of the price range, peak, you're hitting 4, maybe even 5.
There you go. Are you hearing this, guys?
Which is mad. But yeah, so we're really, really pleased. And of course, without your help and assistance, we couldn't have done it.
I appreciate it. No, honestly, listen, even me when I was there at the place, I didn't want to leave, you know? And I think that's what it's about, right? Because yeah, if you find a good place, somewhere that you would want to stay, something that you kind of almost fall in love with, it's a strong chance other people are going to fall in love with it too, right? 100%. And I think the rates that you're getting have kind of reflected that, you know?
Well, there is one night actually that I've seen is the highest, is 573.
Wow.
According to Price Labs.
Is that in July?
New Year's Eve or Christmas.
Oh, right.
Yes. You guys are going to have a wicked Christmas peak.
Because of the views.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have to insert a clip of the picture.
Yeah. And it's just I'm actually pleasantly surprised at how well it's kind of gone, and we appreciate it's a unique property, but I feel like we've started off at such a high. We really need to manage our expectations. But we're probably not going to find something as special as that, and I would call it special. Like you're saying, like you walk in and it's different.
It just captures you. Yeah. No, it does. It's the view. It's the views of the river, London, the skyline, even like the setting, the way the doors open. Yes. It is pretty phenomenal.
That's it. And so when we were doing the comps, there weren't really any comps. This was the best you're going to get, unless you were going higher up, penthouse, that kind of thing, which was obviously not going to happen. For what we were kind of getting, we're getting a lot with that property.
On that topic, actually, so obviously, of course, we are looking for comparables at that point when we're doing our due diligence. Yeah, maybe just shed a little bit of light on how I guess you kind of overcame that when you didn't find any direct comparables to go on.
So we were trying to find, I guess if we found sort of worse off properties and we couldn't find the benchmark that we were aspiring to be because of the property itself, then we were taking the worst property comps and I guess working out obviously what the nightly rate was, like occupancy rate for a worst comp, but also identifying what we were going to do that was going to be better than that comp. Yeah. And that's one way around it. So whilst you may not find a direct comparable, you just have to think differently, think outside the box, find a comp and work out what is different between the property that you're aspiring to have and the comp in front of you.
And I think obviously also trust in the uplift, say that the additions or the extra amenities that your one has. Like you said, if you can only find a comparable, which is maybe lower off, you do have to trust you're going to get that uplift in terms of occupancy, in terms of average nightly rate, based on the things that you're adding to the property or the extra things that your property has.
Yeah, 100%. One thing for us as well is the fact that we have 2 bathrooms. A lot of listings actually have 1 bathroom. And I kept saying, look, if you've got 6 people sharing 1 bathroom, for example, versus we've got 8 people that we can host using 2 bathrooms, it's a little bit better, but we've not always had 8 people staying there. A lot of times it's been maybe 3-4 people, sometimes 5, sometimes 6, but is the fact that extra bathroom makes a huge difference.
It
And
does.
if you are going to sort of factor in the different amenities, if you will, of the property, it always makes a difference, because sometimes people take longer to shower. They know there's an if you bang in the door waiting for someone, you've got a queue of people behind you. It's not a nice experience. I always think, would I want to stay here? That was the
Yes.
approach that
Yeah.
we took. So when it came to even furnishing the place, I kept saying, what do I want? Because I'm panicky even when it comes to good bedding. Miriam hates me for this, and she's probably she's smiling now, but she wasn't smiling when I was
doesn't
saying.
smile at home.
She wasn't smiling at home when we were making the order. But little details is what I made sure that we took into account.
That's also another thing. I think the furnishings in you
Yes.
guys' place are like top rated. So I think that also speaks to probably the exceeding expectations and the fact you're able to charge more. So I guess a lesson in that is some people, when yes, they want to furnish the place and they want to do it with a budget, of course. I think also going that extra, the extra mile and putting some quality luxury
Yeah.
things inside the property, like you guys mattresses and stuff like that. I remember when I saw them, I had to jump on them because I was like, this is
You weren't going to break those mattresses. Really
no way.
good
They're
quality.
they're like this thick, like
Yeah.
literally. Like,
Yeah. And so whilst we the due diligence worked out with that side of things, we probably didn't appreciate that the furnishings were probably going to cost a bit more than we envisaged, and only because we went into the property and we realised quite quickly we couldn't cheap out on the property.
Yeah.
And as you saw, when we were talking about the paintings that the landlord had probably, spent thousands
Silly
and
amounts
thousands
of
of pounds that I at the time couldn't appreciate, but then now looking back, those that was the standard we were kind of competing against, and the standard we had to maintain.
Yes.
So we made some decisions around the furnishings, which meant we spent more, but we'd like to think we're maintaining that quality that we actually first went into.
100%. 100%. No, you guys have. You guys have, honestly. Okay, cool. So listen, we spoke on some good parts, but as we know, in this game, we're not going to sell dreams. So it's like there are going to be challenges. So maybe, what's one or two challenges that you guys faced on the...
Where do we start? Because from the get-go, when we were there, we thought we'd stay there for a while to just get everything up and running. There was always something. We spent so much time having to clear the property out.
Oh yeah.
While Miriam was taking things apart, I was downstairs loading the corridor with rubbish all the time. I can't remember how many trips. During Ramadan as well, so you're tired, already fatigued, and then we couldn't figure out how to work some of the aircon, that kind of thing as well, because it didn't come with like an
I
instruction
forgot,
manual.
you guys'
so
property has aircon.
It does.
Yes,
How's
in
aircon?
all rooms. So it's
Okay,
very
so
good.
again, sorry, just touching back.
Yeah.
These are the kind of amenities we're talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Higher end.
100%. Well, it's dual as well. It's aircon and heating as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when we got there, it was actually cold, and you were sat in a blanket, and there was no blinds. So it's like the heat wasn't being retained, and then there was just stuff everywhere, having to move everything. It wasn't the best start.
No, and we
And-
had. Sorry.
So no, I was gonna say final point. It wasn't clear when we got there. It wasn't how we thought it would be. There was stuff still there, like plates and all, literally everything. So we had to clear everything out. We were delayed by a matter of days just because of the clearing alone.
Yeah, and it was we expected a deep clean, so we went with the view. Obviously, we have full-time jobs. We're trying to balance this with everything else going on in life. So we were trying to plan as best as possible. So we weren't anticipating to also do the deep clean, but luckily enough, we are able to kind of work remotely. So we were we were working in the day, cleaning in the evening, cleaning on weekends, to get it over the line, because we were willing to put that work in, get the deep clean done ourselves, and keep the property rather than complain about every single thing. I think we got to a point where we had to choose our battles. There were
I love that. No, that's important.
Yeah, and there were some battles that were worth fighting, but a deep clean wasn't one of them. We spent 2-3 days cleaning. We were covered in dust, starving due to Ramadan and thirsty, but we got it done.
Yes.
And to be fair, because we had all of the stuff there, we were able to choose in a lot more detail as to what we can keep and what we can't. Because initially I had said I want everything gone, because you go there, you go for a viewing, but you don't look into the drawers to see or anything,
Of course not, you never do,
in that
yeah.
much detail. So I guess the silver lining was we were able to keep stuff that was worth keeping, saving money. There was a really good Dyson, so we kept that, gave the Hoover that we had ordered back. So there were small wins in that loss as well.
I think that's also important. I think this is a tip that I always recommend to people: stay in your Airbnb.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes, even me myself, when starting out, like I would just go to a property, take a look at it, do my checklist and so on and so forth. But like you said, it's a very superficial study of the property. You're not opening drawers, you're not showering in the shower, you're not turning on the washing machine. So of course, if the first person to do all of those things is your guest, you have to kind of expect that there could potentially be some pushback, because they may question the power of the shower, and you're not going to know, and if certain things aren't working or whatever the case may be, maybe you need a little bit of remedial fixing. If the guest is finding that out as the first person, that's never going to be a good thing, and you can quite easily avoid a negative review just by spending the weekend at your place. It's your place, so while you're setting up, stay there, enjoy it, and at least then I think you're kind of preparing in the best way possible for what the guest is about to experience themselves.
Yeah.
100%. Even from figuring out the electric, Miriam would come out and I'd be doing something new, either looking at a control panel, figuring out the lights. I ended up repairing the Dyson because it was clogged and couldn't use it properly.
Yeah, he became a serviceman overnight.
I did because Charlotte Dyson, because I had to repair my parents. I've had it repaired before by other people, so I've seen how they do it.
Okay.
So I ordered the parts and started replacing stuff. But the flooring, you have to accept that with hardwood flooring, if someone's walked around on hard heels, it leaves dents. So we were looking at the floor and there's marks everywhere. So we're like, well, how can we make it look a bit better? So we always were sweeping and always cleaning it. But even that things like opening the windows and doors, the balcony doors, which way do they turn, how to use the handles, how do things feel when you open and close it? Just little things like, for example, the main door when you walk in, because the property is maybe 10 plus years old. Opening the door, it's quite a heavy door, so it's like, oh well, the guests.
It's a very solid door, I remember.
Yeah, so it's like thinking about the guest experience the whole time, even to the check-in to where the key nest is. 24/7 access was the main thing for us. It may be a bit out of the way compared to the other ones, but people are checking out at like 4 a.m,
which can happen.
Which can happen, yeah, because people are getting flights back to the US, for example. So it's taking all those facts into account. What would I want? I in my head, we were thinking, our approach was going to be, we need to compete with high-end hotels, because that's what I want to experience. Almost quite selfish in that it was about me, but how do we want to do it? And it made all the difference, because even to the throws, for example, that you chose, you were very meticulous in choosing it, and it doesn't always mean you spend an arm and a leg. We made many trips. Some Miriam wishes I didn't come to, others happy to
I was
tag
like,
along.
you should just stay in the car, just push the trolley around, but he couldn't even do that. He would just, so...
Listen, no, hold on, because there's a stigma of guys not wanting to get involved. I thought, all right, let me get involved. Pick your battles. just pick your battles of what you want to accept and not accept. I trust Miriam's creative eye. She's a creative one in this. I'm quite high level in that. So we, throughout the whole process, is just thinking where can I add the value and where can Miriam. So it helps having that. But because there was two of us, it made it a lot easier.
Of course.
If there's one person setting up the property, it would have added a lot more time on, because we were being flexible between working hours. So it's just all these things you have to juggle. And it's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart, because when we got there, we were like, what have we walked into? There were nights we thought, let's just sack it off.
And listen, I was proud of you guys for that though, because like I could see the value. Do you remember? I think when I came, I was like, guys, I'm pretty sure I said, guys, stop being silly, because like I could see the potential. Based on everything that I know. But yeah, it wasn't a perfect situation that you guys were walking into, by no means. But this is business, this is the game. And I kind of feel like sometimes, those small little L's, if you'd have let those kind of overtake the situation, you wouldn't be massively up like you guys are right now. So I think it was really good of you guys to stick it out and just basically, you know, put the, and just get to work.
Yes.
And it's paid off. So
no, for sure. Oh, and another sort of challenge that we overcame with your help was the whole sofa situation.
Oh yes, sofa saga.
Yes, sofa saga. That's a good one. I like that. So our numbers were based on 8 guests.
Yes.
And the idea was to essentially remove the owner's sofas. They were old, ragged, and weren't sofa beds, and replace them with our sofa beds.
Yes.
Overnight, the owner decided he loved these sofas and couldn't part with them. So he said, they're staying put, which put us in a predicament because that would mean we could only have 4 guests.
Yes.
And basically ruining any due diligence that we've done. And to be fair, we tried to work with the 4 numbers. We did do a quick due diligence check, and whilst we were making a bit of profit, it just wasn't going to be worth it. And then sort of with your help kind of negotiating that part of it, we were able to agree that we can dispose of the owner's sofas, bring our sofa beds in, and essentially at the end of hopefully a very long tenancy term, the owner can keep those sofa beds.
And he's got new and improved.
Yeah, new and improved.
Speaking.
And with that, we were able to then now host 8 guests, and a lot of our bookings are around your 6 mark.
The top ones, you're probably getting the good rate
6
ones.
and a lot, and to be fair, some will be 8 as well, because they obviously get more for their money if there's 8 friends, for example, splitting it between the 8 of them.
100%.
So that for me was a deal breaker.
Yes.
If we could only have 4 guests. So yeah, with your help, with your experience, we were able to kind of get that over the line. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the property today. So thank you for that, Dean.
No problem. It's been a pleasure, honestly.
And I've actually genuinely enjoyed the experience and the setting up process. I think, like Abdul was saying, it's not for the faint-hearted. If you there will be so many hurdles. You can't just decide to give up. It doesn't work like that. If you give up, you've just given up on the whole deal. It's not. It doesn't make any sense. So you have to be relentless. You have to be committed to the cause, and just look for solutions, not problems.
Preach. I love it.
Yeah, again, this is where the voice of reason came in from yourself, where you're like, no, don't. It's too much of a risk to let it go versus to keep it.
Yes.
Because remember when we walked in, I was like, oh, the bathrooms are dated. We were going to almost get on the stick-on tiles. Didn't need to do it.
Yeah.
The lighting made a difference.
Yeah.
It's little tweaks that you can consider.
And that's it. It kind of goes
Yes.
back to choosing the battles.
Yeah, it does.
I think probably the only battle we couldn't concede on was the sofa battle.
No.
Yeah,
So,
100%.
yeah.
That was
it wouldn't have
probably the
stacked.
only one.
Yeah.
Otherwise, to be fair, every other battle we had, we conceded, whether that was just not having that particular thing or doing it ourselves.
Yes.
And working with what we had. And I think, like, I've always had an eye for interior design, so I was right in my element. But interior design can go 2 ways. You can have a blank canvas, or you can have something that's already kind of done but not really put together, and you basically make it cohesive in your own way through design. So I had the latter. And so it was really teaching me to kind of work within the boundaries, work within what we have.
Yes.
And that was the running theme through the whole project, was working with what we had, working with it, not against it.
I think that's just entrepreneurialism, right? That's business. What you just said, that is business in a nutshell. You know, taking lemons, making lemonade. That's just what we do on a day-to-day basis, you know. And that's the game, you know.
That's it. And I think we've kind of got a taste for it now. And yeah, we're eager to sort of go again once we feel as settled as we can be.
You know, I know that's the case, because once Abdul said to me he pulled his money out of XRP, I was like, something's going on here.
He's got plans.
I was saying, so on a side note, me and Dean like to speak about crypto a lot. For me, it was all about having control of it. I'm parking my money in something, but I don't know, it's going through ups and downs. I was like, I don't want to gamble. Not right now. I'd rather focus on property for now, and then maybe later on we can come back to that. But yeah, I want to go again. It's because for me is when we started, is I had a roadmap in my head of when and how many, be it the numbers we're making, be it the areas we want to look at, and just like you said, the creative side of it. I'm not an interior designer, but what I am is I like solving problems. That's where it helps having someone who's a good ear. Where Miriam's going to look at the interior stuff, I was looking at getting the Wi-Fi sorted, who's doing the best Wi-Fi deals, and that kind of thing. So it's like looking at simple things like who's got the best Wi-Fi connection in the area, because Virgin doesn't service it, so we want Vodafone, for example. It's things like that. Considering a Wi-Fi dongle in case the Wi-Fi drops.
Essential,
absolutely, because our Wi-Fi drops while we were there.
There you go.
It stopped working, and it was some private company that was doing it, not even like a mainstream supplier. So it's things like that. There's unexpected problems you can't even think of what's going to happen, but it does. Although I hope it's a lot smoother for other people, but swings and roundabouts. It happens. But yeah, definitely want to go again. Hurdles aside, I definitely feel like I'm in my element with property because
Good,
we do our own podcast and we interview so many people, but it's actually doing it versus talking about it and looking at the theory of it and reading the books and watching the YouTube videos and whatever else is different.
Yeah, maybe that's something to ask. So, because I'm sure when I met you, you guys were on the buy-to-let train, right? I'm sure that's what you guys were thinking. And then obviously you guys switched over to rent. So why don't you tell me a little bit more about that story, how that journey?
Do you want to give the background of how we would do what with the buy-to-let, and I can talk about how we actually got into...
Yeah, so we knew we wanted to get into property. And like, there's so much out there. You can do everything and anything at this point. And I think with our first project, we wanted to just almost kind of have a proof of concept that it works. Developing works, and it was going to be maybe a 150k property near the Midlands, and we were going to do some sort of light refurbishment, create 2 bedrooms converted from a 1-bed to a 2-bed, but light kind of refurb, and we were kind of on that train, but it took a long time. We were in conveyancing for 3-4 months, and there were different hurdles, different legal issues that we were facing, and it was costing us money. And I think the bigger thing, it was costing us time, because we were fed up of talking about it. We were fed up of attending courses or looking at webinars or reading books. We wanted to kind of get on with it. And I think one thing about rent to rent was the speed.
Yes.
Speed of getting started. Massive difference. And appreciate good things, take time, etc. But there's taking time, and then there's taking time with the conveyancing and all the...
So you guys were actually in the process of purchasing somewhere.
Yeah.
3 or 4 months of conveyancing.
Yeah.
So what happened? Did you guys have to pull out?
We had to pull out because the legal advice was that the missing freeholder was an issue. So it was down to a legal issue, and so we were kind of back to square one with almost nothing to show for ourselves.
Well, if anything, you're down, because you're down on some money and some time.
Which was an issue, and then of course Abdul bumped into you. Was it a jacuzzi, a sauna?
Hold on. We need to paint the right picture.
We need to clarify this. That sounded crazy.
So from while we're doing the development, I was a bit apprehensive because I did want to go to rent to do serviced accommodation before, but it has to be a joint decision. So I was like, fine, it's going to be a proof of concept, so we can use that money later on. But the time and spent in conveyancing, the back and forth, going to the viewings, the time was crazy because I remember the first viewing, I couldn't make it because I had to go to a funeral that day. And just stuff like chasing estate agents, what's going on, their solicitors, no one's responding, looking for the freeholder ourselves, tracking them down. It's long. And then, funny enough, I was like, look, let's pull out, let's go back to the drawing board.
See, I don't think people know all of this. I think people sometimes in their mind, quite wrongly, think that, I don't know, like rent to rent is like a super complicated property strategy versus buy to let. They think buy to let is some simple, easy thing that's guaranteed to go through. There's no hurdles. For me, in terms of my experience, it's actually way harder.
Yes. We would talk about this in the car actually, about buying and the mortgages. And for example, we were going to use bridging. Bridging finance is expensive, but also the due diligence the lenders take.
Oh, yeah.
But the fees are extortionate because our solicitor said, look, the bank, if we proceed to do searches, they're going to try and lock in a fee. Do you remember they're going to withhold some money?
Yep.
So there's those charges as well. And the whole concept is to make money on the exit. But the timescales versus just the complexities around it, it just wasn't going to be worth it. And parking that much money out at once, I already had a bad feeling about it. Miriam was a bit more on the side of getting proof concepts. So I said, fine. Because it is going to give us ultimate experience, right? Because you can't beat doing. You can look at all the videos or whatever, but actually doing it. But then as we decided we're not going to do it anymore, that's why we met at the gym.
Yes.
I think that was the first time you'd been back at that time after looking back at it. But yeah, I remember just walking to the sauna one morning, then we just got chatting.
Is it the new sauna?
The new sauna.
Yeah, it was the
new sauna.
So the gym, you know, I think they just reopened.
Yes.
Just
they did.
reopened, or the renovations
Yes.
done. Okay, yeah.
I was living in the spa, so Miriam's always like, "Oh, why are you always late?" I'm like, "Look, the reason of being in a good gym is because you're gonna meet like-minded people."
100%.
So, to put it in perspective, I've been to a JD gym where you're paying £20 a month. Versus going to a David Lloyd where we got referred from a PT, so paying like what 140. But anyway, the point is, some people can't justify it. I can, because there's a certain environment I want to be around. So as we were there in the sauna, just enjoying the whole new spa feel. That's why we got chatting, and then the whole thing about what you did. And I was talking to you about the podcast side, and I was like, how about you? And you talk about the rent trend side. So then we exchanged numbers, got talking, and then lo and behold, fast forward,
We're sitting on some sofas.
we're sitting on some sofas chatting about property.
No, listen, it's actually it's quite an interesting story when you think about it. But I do think you're completely correct with what you say. You could go, listen, I'm not trying to say any gyms are shit. That's not what this is about. But you could go to certain gyms and, listen, if you want to go to like a gym where you're going to do bodybuilding, if that's what you're into, CrossFit, of course, But listen, you're completely correct. The networking opportunities, going to a gym, I guess, listen, there are more bougie gyms, but David Lloyd has become kind of bougie. And it is good for networking because you are meeting like-minded people. That's just the reality. That's literally how we've met. We're doing business together. So, I guess there's something to be said of that.
That's it. The proof is there. It's sometimes opportunities come when you're not even looking for them.
And funnily enough, like Abdul was saying, I was on the sort of buying side, development side, etc.
Yes.
And I was aware of the rent-to-rent concept, strategy. And when we first met, or when we first kind of got married and started living together, and we wanted to kind of align our thinking and our future plan, Abdul was very strong on the rent-to-rent strategy, and I probably shot him down, hence why we ended up buying what we did, etc. But to be honest, if it wasn't through that organic meeting with yourself, I don't know if I would have ever done rent to rent, because I don't know, I was always not against the rent to rent strategy. I understand it and it's great, but I was always thinking ownership, having a portfolio, which has its own advantages, as you know. But I think because you guys met organically and a friendship formed, and that turned into business, I felt a lot more comfortable because it wasn't someone, shoving a strategy down our throat or selling something. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you feel that there's a lot of that on social media, and you don't know who to trust and who to don't. But because you guys met organically, I felt like we could trust yourself, trust what you could bring to the table, and also trust the strategy. So it was a kind of 180 for me, because I never thought I would do rent to rent, but now that I've done it and I'm on the other side.
So you were the one we needed to convince. I didn't even know that. Me and you were just talking like that.
But he clearly did a good enough job where he did convince me. But I never thought I would do it, but now that I've done it, I wish I'd started sooner.
That's always the way. That's always the way.
Sometimes it's picking your battles and losing losing certain battles but winning the war in the end, which I think it worked out because we saw the amount in comparison to just conveyancing alone.
Yeah, that was a month, 3-4 months.
Months in the conveyancing, but also how many property viewings did we go to?
Yeah.
Leeds, there was one in Birmingham we were about to go to, but we thought no. And the searching as well versus searching for a rent-to-rent deal, and then that whole process of booking viewings. It's a lot shorter, but also the systems and processes in place.
You know, traditional investing just isn't what it once was, to be honest with you. This is like a newer system. It's newer and improved, because you can still do both. You know, I find if you're going down a buy-to-let strategy, all your capital is literally gone into that strategy. It could be one purchase, could be 2 or 3. Even doing BRR over time, some money's always left in. So that pot of money that you start off with over time is always going to deplete until you're at a point where you can no longer buy. If you think you're going to be very, very easily taking money out of your properties, I have to say to you, try and take money out of your property and you'll see the difficulty you come up against. Even though it's your money, the bank make you feel like it's not your money. They make you jump through a bunch of hoops just to try and to get access. And I've spoken to a lot of people actually that say they've got money tied into their property and they would like to go and do X, Y, Z. And it quite often doesn't work out to be as easy as they thought it would. Whereas like the flexibility that you get with doing rent to rent. So yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of people are kind of seeing the light. It's kind of like you guys did, to be honest.
I think it's a mindset thing as well, because quite institutionalized in this country, where jumping on the property ladder is seen as such a secure thing. And
yes.
It's like, well, your money's going to be tied in. You're going to be paying capital gains. You're going to be paying stamp duty, all these kind of fees, and it's like, well, it's getting harder and harder.
Yes.
Depending on what government policies in place and all that kind of thing, but you have to adapt to the time. And I think, for example, a good way maybe would be commercial right now, or commercial conversions. But again, that's because it's cheaper to buy a commercial property per square foot. From what I've learned through conversations, where buying a house, the whole process, it's just speed isn't there. People love speed.
Yes.
And the more
success loves speed.
Success, yes, absolutely. And there's no urgency I find with dealing with solicitors and estate agents. It's just there's just so many people involved, having to do checks and get this check, and the bank wants to do their own checks and all this kind of thing. It's a pain in the backside, to be honest. It has put me off. I'm quite sour about it.
And on the point of speed, I think it's one thing, the strategy demanding speed. It's another thing, people being speedy. And I think with us, I guess the team we had, whether that was yourself mentoring, sourcing, everyone was acting with urgency.
Yes.
Right? And it made us act with urgency too.
Yes.
We already had the urgency, but you know what I mean? Like, it was like a shared urgency, and that's what got us through. And it's that just constant proactiveness, but reacting when you need to as well.
Yes.
So I think without speed, we wouldn't have been successful, because things kept on changing all the time, and it was just kind of, you just have to keep up with the changes, and the only way you can do that is with speed.
You have to be flexible as well. For example, we came back from Leeds to see my family, and next thing you know, I was moving sofas down the stairs.
Oh yeah, that was.
Do you remember that? Yeah, that was crazy.
I thought I could help him, but I couldn't.
These sofas were they were heavy. And then
I remember because they had the metal frame with them.
Metal frame, down a flight of stairs, but they're huge, like, wide as well. So I'm there halfway down some stairs. I'm fasting as well. And then
that must have been real hard.
Someone came and asked if we need some help. I was like, yes,
please.
Because I was like, all right, I'm holding it. You need to turn, but it was quite heavy.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
And it's just classic friend scene. Pivot.
Yeah.
Pivot.
Yeah, pivot.
Really,
yeah, it was
I
literally
bet it just wasn't pivoting.
It wasn't pivoting. And I thought I could do it by myself, because I said to my mum, no, it's fine, go see your friends, something's come up. Fine. I'll do it by myself. No
chance. I mean,
no. I will have or your flowers are owed to you, by the way. Without a lot of your kind of perseverance, it wouldn't have been very easy.
Likewise, I think we made a great team.
Yeah. You guys did.
We compartmentalized as much as we could, because I found that sometimes we were just getting in each other's ways. Yeah. So he was dealing with more sort of the logistical side, doing the kind of bin trips up and down. I was trying to kind of do the design side, manage everything, organize everything, and that kind of thing. It was crazy. We were in the same flat, but we wouldn't see each other for hours. It was mad. But that's what needed to happen.
Yeah. I think you guys you're presenting quite a good advert for being able to work with your spouse on these projects. That's what I would say. I think
yeah, if there were secret cameras, I don't know, and we had the footage from those cameras
off camera.
I'm not sure, but no, and it made us kind of learn each other, things about each other that we didn't know and stuff like that. And yeah,
because you know that's different, because I guess you're not only are you guys obviously married, living with each other, then you're also now doing business with
together.
each other.
Yeah, and I feel, and he says this a lot, that I take a more corporate approach to things, and sometimes it's really helpful and it's really good. Other times I really need to chill the hell out.
Chill out, Miriam.
Yeah, honestly, man. Like with for example, the sofas, I was like, well, how's the landlord going to know if we just put it in a storage unit? Technically, there's still, he doesn't care as long as it's there when he returns. Fine. So maybe we can store it. Fine. But Miriam's like, no, we can't do that. I was like, look, sometimes you have to take a creative approach. I'm not advocating breaching contracts by any shape or form. That's your influence talking there. But you have to take a creative approach to problem solving. That's where I come in.
Yeah.
And we talk about this as well, having a creative approach to dealing with problems rather than just a traditional approach sometimes.
100%.
Just thinking outside the box. There's no box. Just think there's as many options as you can create.
Yeah, no, I love that.
And I think for anyone who is wanting to get into rent and is maybe worried that they may not be good enough or whatever it is, I do find with our jobs, we've been able to transfer so many skills across to the rent,
Yes.
Strategy. And so there'll be plenty of people who will have their day jobs, but I can guarantee you that their skills would definitely transfer, whether it's communication skills, organisation skills, thinking outside the box, being creative, working under pressure, working to tight deadlines. It all helps. So whilst I do have this corporate mindset, it does serve me as well on certain things. So you don't have to necessarily come from a property background. No way. Yeah, there's no barrier in that sense. And if anything, the skills they've acquired, whether it's a personal thing or a professional thing, in terms of where those skills have come from, they will definitely be used in this property strategy.
People really do need to know that the barriers to entry to having your own property business have never been so low as they are right now. So, they need to take advantage.
Yeah.
The amount of technology and tools and systems we've implemented, I guess it helps with the background we use, because I work in IT, so I use a Kanban board. I use Trello for everything, even personally now. So anything we're doing in rent to rent, I've got a board so we know everything that's going on. Because sometimes Miriam will be saying something, I'm like, I've forgotten. Why? Out of sight, out of mind. If it's not put down somewhere, I'm going to forget. So we thought, okay, we'll need to have one central system for everything and link everything in there. So it's just find ways that work for you. I'm very forgetful. So unless I've written a note somewhere or I'm tagged in something, it took some convincing for Miriam to use Trello, because a lot of the times I was writing comments to myself and she wouldn't respond. About tagging Miriam and stuff. I'm like, hey Miriam, can you do this?
Yeah, he was talking to himself for weeks.
Yeah, I was.
And he would mention randomly, you need to go on the Trello, and I'd be like, yes. But yeah, it's habits, right? Because I'm not used to Trello. He uses Trello freshly and personally. Yeah. I'm just not used to it. So going back to kind of working together, there's some ways of working that I'm not used to that he does, and vice versa. And it's just trying to find what is the best for both of us and for the business. So I now use Trello, and I'm actually.
You've been converted.
I've been converted.
But channel managers, man, I've been using. I thought, let's make a roadmap. How are things going to? How can we make the infrastructure to scale? So I thought, okay, let's use a channel manager. No, some of the ones we've used are so painful.
Sadly, I honestly, I wish that wasn't the case.
Yeah, same.
But they can be clunky, and the usability is just not there, and sometimes it can create more problems.
It has been in our experience.
Yeah,
2 of them now, right?
Certain times, it's not blocking off certain things, and that's the thing, right? Because you're putting all these systems and processes in place so that you can be hands off.
Yes,
and that's a major risk. because you become hands off, and in the background that system is not doing what it should be.
Yep,
but
and
you're
then-
just taking it blindly, and that's a problem. So so yeah, just to be comfortable, we would just go and look and just make sure everything mirrored.
Yep.
There were little small discrepancies which are massive. Imagine double bookings, for example.
Nightmare.
Worst nightmare.
I'm constantly going through
Yeah.
listings, calendars, just to make sure it's blocked, in case
Yeah.
so it is double booked.
Yeah, so I think we're going to have to look at some sort of automation, but outside these channel managers.
Yeah, listen, systemizing is key. That's why a lot of people use VAs.
Yeah.
You know, because it's I guess it's that next level of systemization or even outsourcing, and it kind of takes you beyond the level of these platforms that you're using that can be clunky, because then that person has access to each individual platform.
Yeah.
So if they need to take action, then they can, but you still retain control. That's the only thing which I don't necessarily like, is the lack of control that you have. You can't go into an individual platform and make a change urgently if you needed to. That's kind of what I don't like.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I would rather this way around, where we've actually, experienced what's out there and kind of understood what doesn't work for us, what works for us. Because initially when we got this rent-to-rent deal, we wanted to kind of jump to the channel manager day one. But you said, no, get on each individual platform, learn the quirks of the platform, how you navigate through things, how you change things up, so you've got a really good understanding and good base, and then move on to the channel manager. And definitely appreciate that advice, because we know what each platform does and how it does it.
Yes.
If we just went to the channel manager, I think it would have been
It'd be a
disaster.
nightmare. No, if
Yeah,
anything
it
was
would.
to go wrong, you wouldn't know where to
Yeah,
start
exactly.
or how to
Exactly.
get yourself out of it.
Because there's all things like the different rules and availability and all this kind of thing. If you're using a channel manager saying one thing and then your other channel is another night, for example, a minimum night stay rule, for example, it's just not going to sync. So you're going to cause more mess and more work for yourself when you don't need to. So yeah, I looking back, I think getting really affair with the channels direct helps, because you really understand the ins and outs from their own rules, how they do things, who's quicker at responding, who isn't when it comes to any issues. Booking.com, by the way, painful. We were discussing this on the way.
Please, booking.com, just
Honestly.
invest a little bit more into like the interface. Just please. Please.
It's been months for us to get listed on there. We still haven't.
We still haven't. I mean-
Airbnb was up and running within a week, even though there was a problem.
Yeah.
They accepted the contract. Verbo was fine. But the it's interesting to see the market share difference. So getting to know where the requests are coming in the most. So it seems to almost gravitate towards whatever channel's getting the busiest, where we're having to use that the most. Where things like Booking.com, I probably have no idea how to use it, because I've not had any bookings there, because they're blocking us.
That will come though.
Yeah, it will.
Booking.com, listen, they can be good. I have some listings that I'd say like 90% of bookings come from Booking.com.
Wow.
It's really, really
Wow.
weird. Yeah, no,
Amazing.
it is like a location specific thing. And for some reason, Airbnb just doesn't hit as much. So, and some people have, like you guys had some really good success with like Verbo, for example.
We did.
Other listings,
Wow.
yeah, not a peep. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, Verbo was there when we got all the traffic from Verbo straight away when we listed, where Airbnb
Yes.
was quiet. So like
Yeah.
there's like a period where it's just all Verbo bookings. I think is it June.
June is the Verbo month.
Yeah, that literally we call it the Verbo month. Yeah.
But yeah.
So I was thinking I'd need to ask some questions though, which I don't know if I have. Okay, so I'm just going to do some this or that style questions, right? So
Okay.
you guys feel free to answer, okay? Would you rather build a brand or stay behind the scenes?
Build a brand, because it's so important in this day and age. As much as
100%.
I would want to stay behind the scenes, I just don't think you've got a choice these days.
You actually don't have a choice.
I used to think behind the scenes and being quite discreet, but what's the point? Because there's probably so many people out there wanting to connect to you that you don't even know. There's people out there that probably want to see your content.
Yeah, and like you
it
said,
is
they
you
want to
produce.
connect with
They
you,
want
but
to
if
connect, yeah.
if you're not putting yourself out there,
Exactly,
then they won't be able to. Scale fast or grow steady?
Grow steady. Always. In
Both
always.
ones at the same time. Take the deal or wait for the perfect one.
Ooh,
Take the deal.
I would say take the deal.
You guys are like aligned and you're thinking.
Yeah,
We are,
and take the deal and work it out later.
Yes.
Yeah, figure out.
I would do the same.
Yeah,
if
yeah.
I'm honest.
Because if you're always waiting for the perfect time with anything in life, then you're never going to make a decision. Because you're always going to, it's like, I think it comes down to risk tolerance. I talk about this a lot now. Because I've made some very risky decisions before, bit me, and now it's just, as long as you do your due diligence, then it's fine. It's not always going to be perfect, but as long as you're making profit, that's why we're in this game in the first place.
It's calculated risk.
Yeah,
isn't
you
it?
have to
Exactly,
take calculated
exactly.
risk.
There's risk in everything that we do, but as long
Yes.
as there's some calculation behind it,
Correct.
you should
Yeah.
be in wait, which is a good one. Okay, this is a good one. Go big or stay lean. So, like, what it means by that, would you rather manage like 2 high cash flowing properties or maybe like 10 lower margin ones?
I think I want to say 2, because I've always been quality over quantity. And I think when you have quality, I think you're going to probably gain so much more knowledge in that you're mastering just those 2 properties and you're probably going to fulfill their potential. Whereas if you have several, you're spreading yourself too thin.
Yes.
So I think I would go quality over quantity.
I agree, because if you spread out with so many properties, but they're generating the same amount, what's the point? Because then you're having to manage multiple cleaners, for example, on
Yeah,
each property.
more work.
It's just more work for less. Why bother?
Self-manage or outsource everything?
Ooh, a bit of both. I think self-manage initially, learn the ropes, know your kind of profile, know what can go wrong, what's working, and then outsource.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to have this transition period.
You
but
can't just outsource because
No, you can't. Not straight away, because otherwise you don't.
You
if it goes wrong, then how are you?
you
gonna
wouldn't
fix
know
it?
what you're outsourcing.
Yeah, exactly.
Facts. Profit first or passion project?
Profit first for me.
Yeah, I think profit, because you take the emotion out of things. And I think whilst obviously we try to maintain a good moral standard and all that, I think you need to take emotion out of business to a certain extent. Obviously, you don't want to kind of shaft anyone in the process, but equally, I think taking the emotion out is probably. Although I think property is a bit of both for
It
me,
is a bit of both.
right? Because I'm really passionate about property.
Yeah, double whammy.
Making a profit out of it, happy days.
And plus, profit can fund passion.
It can. We're passionate about cars, so
There you go.
the profit is gonna pay for your lifestyle, whatever else you want to do. But also because we enjoy property as well. It's not really. It's not boring for me.
No.
Property is like a win-win thing. Like, I will be honest, in terms of businesses you could potentially have, like, I do love this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just the previous Saturday. It was 11:30, and I'm on my laptop, and my friend sends me a photo. Oh, this is what I'm doing. She was watching, I don't know, some TV show, and I did the same. And then I sent it, and I looked at the time, and I was like, "Wow, you wouldn't catch me doing the law at this time."
What was it, 11:30?
Yeah, it was 11:30 on a Saturday night.
We're going.
But it didn't feel like we had to do it. We wanted to do it.
I love that.
So yeah, it brings out property. Not to sound too cliche, but it definitely brings out the best in me. I feel more myself in property, because for me it's the perfect balance between academia and creativity. You need to know your numbers. You need to be commercial, but equally you need to have an eye for design. And for me, it's the perfect balance.
Yes.
We have to tell each other sometimes to stop talking about property when we're
Yeah,
just
because
chilling.
obviously we live together.
Yeah, it could
we
probably
work.
get
Yeah,
too much.
it can
does,
get
it
too
does.
much. Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, phone's down, because I might have a message from Airbnb, and she's like, stop it. Just grabs the phone. I'm like,
Unless they've lost the keys and now don't know what to do with themselves.
well, I guess just asked how much it's going to cost, because they sent a heartbreak emoji.
Yeah. So
The game is the game, my friend. You
Game is
shouldn't
the
have dropped those keys on the train. What can you
did
do?
you drop them on the train?
Left them on the train.
He said metro, but I mean, yeah. I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
Oh, so he knows where I thought maybe, he's left them somewhere. He's gonna go back, find them, but that's not the case. Oh crap. Okay.
To be
Solutions,
continued.
not problems.
To be continued.
Yeah.
To be continued.
To be continued.
To be continued.
So listen, if you'd like to build a property business where you could be making job replacing income in just a matter of months, you'll find the link in description below, and you can find my social media handles, Instagram at Mr. Dean Frost. Reach out and we'll have a conversation.